Yeah, we are in the place of
Hello, everybody in Canada. Alex Melki here. Now, you're probably wondering, hey, Alex, doesn't your show start at 7? It does. But you know, I figured Canada's such a big country. There's so many different time zones that I just wanted to give you an idea of what it feels like to interact with somebody from a different time zone. So here we are. It's just a little past 8, which in my book, it's always good for news. We're going to have a good show today. And I'm going to give you a couple of stories that are basically the cream of the crop from Narcity's website today. And the way I see it, these are the news articles that you guys deemed most relevant to your lives, most interesting, because these are the ones that are the most trending. So we've got Dougie Ford, who's got this weird obsession, and he's got his fingers in all kinds of sex ed curriculums in Ontario. We've got weed at the border, which is never a fun time for anyone involved. And then we've got dead birds in British Columbia. Now, these birds just don't know how to stay alive, and it's starting to creep people out. But first, let's get to Dougie. You know what doesn't go together like peanut butter and jelly? Doug Ford and sex. Now, I'm sorry if you're eating dinner. That was probably really gross to hear, and I really hope you're not visualizing Doug Ford having sex right now. Let's just move on with the show. I'm sorry about that. At 1 p.m. today, 70 high schools across Ontario, students from those high schools stood up in protest. They left their class at around 1 p.m. and they went out and they took a stand. Now, they had to get back to class for around 3 p.m. because they're students and they had to catch the bus to get home. But they stood up for what they believed in. Now, what did they believe in? Doug Ford, when he took office, his political stance, his beliefs somehow arched their way all the way into education in the form of mixing up the sex ed curriculum, which is such a weird thing to think about. Why would we need to do that? Now, what did he do? There was an update to the sex ed curriculum in Ontario, and this happened in 2015. So it's a 3-year-old brand new sex ed class that they were teaching. He wiped that out. He's like, you know what? Nah, let's get rid of that. Let's bring back one that has been around since 1985. All right, that's when Back to the Future was in theaters, okay? And just to give you an idea of how far back and how dated this is, can we pull up a sign? One of the protest signs, they're using a curriculum that was around when NSYNC was around. And we remember NSYNC, right? You remember Justin Timberlake, frosted tips that looked like ramen? Do you think that was a good idea then? They thought it was, but it's not. We know better now, because it's not 1985. 1995. It's not 1993. It's 2018. So that's just a terrible, terrible thing. And so the reason this is such a big deal, and the reason that these kids think it's a big deal, is because they're not learning about things that are really, really important. I mean, sex ed, yes, but it stretches out to so many different areas of life. So first up, you have online sexual harassment. Now, straight up, there were no cell phones in high schools in 1985. If you did, your dad was probably a drug dealer. No one had cell phones. Now it's a thing. Kids are going to be texting and maybe even sexting, all right? Sorry, mom and dad, but it's, it's 2018. Things are happening. Now the kids aren't going to know how to deal with something when it comes up. That's important. Gender identity. Same-sex marriage. Now, I'm not going to try to go full Justin Trudeau with you here, but it's 2018. And same-sex marriage is a reality in Canada, in the world, and it's something that a lot of kids should learn about in high school and not just not know about it until they're adults and then form these really prejudicial opinions about when they're 30, 35 and get all angry and divisive. No, you teach them this as kids, you show them, you pave them a way, and they're supposed to learn. That's essentially what school is all about. It's education. Now, the other thing that they're also not going to learn about is masturbation. That's how dated this is. They're not going to learn about masturbation. Now, you don't need to learn about masturbation in school, right, kids? Your palms are going to get all hairy if you jerk off, and you're going to go blind. If that were true, I would be some kind of werewolf daredevil, okay? You can catch my show on Netflix. No. You need to teach kids about this stuff. This is important. This is basic. Now, the students put up a guide. This is really cool. So if we just pull that up, this is a guide that all the students can read and just work cohesively on. So I'm just going to read it out to you here. We, the students, need to show our government that we do not consent to this action. The impacts of these changes have been repeated by hundreds of experts. They will not keep our students, our women, our LGBTQ community, or our indigenous populations safe. It's time for us to all stand up and fight for our right to education. And that's another thing that they're not going to cover. Indigenous issues, which if you live in Canada, I don't know if you're familiar with Canadian history, but Indigenous issues are kind of part of the history. It's kind of the most Canadian thing you could possibly have. So there's a lot of things that these kids are trying to fight for. And what's cool about this, what's mind-blowing to me, is that these are kids in school. I don't know if you remember being in high school. I haven't been in high school in 10 years. If you tried to make us do anything in high school, it never would have worked. We're the stupidest, I mean not stupid, but you don't want to organize. You want to go home and play video games. You want to sleep. You want to eat a bunch of junk food. These kids have more forethought than adults, which is almost insulting in a way. And it's really cool, and I think it's really cool that they're doing this. Now, I'm going to ask you guys, I'm going to get to the comments if I am able to by the end of the show, and I want to know your opinions. Do you think that this is really cool, that what these kids are doing, that they're standing up for something that they believe in, something that should be fought for? Or do you think that this is stupid? Do you think that they're disrupting school for everyone else, and maybe they should just, figure this out on their own time outside of school? Leave a comment, and if there's time at the end of the show, I'm going to try to bring them up. If not, I'm going to drop a comment back to engage with you guys. Moving on to the next story now. Guys, if you haven't stocked up on Bagel Bites and Chips Ahoy cookies, and I don't mean like the little Chips Ahoy cookies from like a Dep or a gas station, I mean the big ones from like Costco, you gotta do it. Because we are less than a month away from the legalization of marijuana in the country of Canada. And it's fun. A lot of people are looking forward to it. It's going to be a good time, order a pizza, watch some movies, try to get in tune with your greener side. The only people that are not super psyched about this news are the weenies with the sticks up their butt. And I'm talking, of course, about America. Not America the people, America the government, They're a bunch of suits. No, they're not suits, but some of them wear suits. But they're getting very defensive and angry about weed legalization. What's different this time? Signs have popped up along the US-Canadian border between Vermont and Quebec. And this is on the southbound Quebec Autoroute 55 leading to US port of entry on Interstate 91. That's a whole bunch of information that you probably don't even need, but just to give you an idea of where this is. Between Vermont and Quebec. Now, the interesting thing about this, because this shouldn't really surprise anyone that this is an issue for America, what's really crazy is that Vermont actually has weed legalized. And so now you have a situation where weed is legalized in Vermont, weed is legalized in Quebec, but you can't bring it across the border. And that's fine. That's fine, all right? You want to get a little extreme with it? Okay, cool. The sign in question here, as you can see, it's a marijuana leaf crossed out with the word frontière underneath it, border. And the gist of it is, hey, you guys, keep your sticky icky, your sweet purple kush, all right? Keep the devil's lettuce on your side of the border. We don't want it here. Or you're going to get a spanking. And it's a little dramatic, you know? It's a little, you guys need to chill a little bit. Speaking of dramatic, and this is an ongoing thing with the U.S. and the Border Patrol. U.S. Customs and Border Protection announced recently that you will get banned if you admit that you have smoked weed, if you admit any sort of connection at all to the weed industry, whether it's investments, whether you know a guy, one time that you met a guy who you passed through a hallway in school and he smoked weed, you're gonna get banned for life. That's a little overdramatic. I've seen a couple episodes of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and let me tell you, Kris Jenner is not that dramatic. You guys need to take a breather, maybe smoke a J, and just reassess the whole situation. I think you're going overboard a little bit. Now, so I'm pulling this up here. The move that's being recommended in a situation like this, you pull up to the border, and I don't know why I'm doing this. No one has manual windows anymore. The window comes down, and he goes, "Hi." He's like, "Do you smoke weed? Are you a weed smoker?" You can't lie to the guy because it's against the law. So you just say your move is to say, you know what? I refuse to answer that question, which is totally in your right. You drive off home, and you try another day, and it feels gross, right? It feels like, why should you have to do that if it's legalized in Canada? Well, you'll get banned. Now here's the thing. Why not lie? Lying seems like the obvious thing to do. Number one, you'll get banned. Number two, and this is where the information kind of trickles down a little bit, the top 5 big banks in Canada. So you've got here, I'm going to pull this up here. You've got TD, RBC, Scotiabank, CIBC, and the Bank of Montreal. The way they work is that they can source they can store all your banking information outside of the country as well. And that country that can access that information, they can judge you based on the information that they have in their country, not on your country. The laws are going to be based on American laws. And so you roll up to them, you lie to them, and then they pull that up at the border, you're kind of in a bit of a pickle, okay? So don't do that. And I went on Reddit, and some of the comments that I found, and I pulled them up, and it's a solid piece of advice. If you're going to buy weed, if you're going to partake in that industry, do so with cash. Don't use your credit card. Minimize or completely eliminate a paper trail. And again, it feels gross. Like, it feels like you're doing something that you should be ashamed of, or that you shouldn't, it feels wrong. And you know what? That's not your fault, okay? It's not your fault. It's just America hasn't caught up to how progressive Canada is, all right? They're going to get there, hopefully one day. And until then, just enjoy the beautiful, beautiful weed that we have here. Okay, now, different story now. And this is something that I think all Canadians can sort of get a little bit passionate about. I might get angry, and I'm sorry in advance if I do. Not because I'm Canadian, but because this is actually like okay. There are 3 things that Canadians can expect in life. All right, these are just the most Canadian things that are in the universe. Snow. There's always going to be snow. There's always going to be hockey, and Canadians are always going to get shafted hard by every cell phone provider in the country, right up the butt. My cell phone bill last month alone was $200. Okay, and that's with 8 gigs of data. Now, maybe I have a bit of a problem with going over my data, or maybe it's 2018, and we should have an affordable plan that has a reasonable amount of data a month that works for people, because it doesn't work the way it does now. It's insane. It's insane. You talk to anybody in the U.S. or in Europe, what they're paying for their cell phone bills, it's like we're living in a third world country. It's like data is a natural resource that they're like digging up. They're like, sorry, we ran out of data this month. Ugh. Now, I did a little bit of research, and I pulled up what the cheapest, just compare, a data plan in the US, a data plan here, right? I found the best price I found quickly, $75 for a 6 gigabyte a month plan with Fido, which actually sounds pretty good. In the US, Boost, which is a cell phone provider, has a $50 plan with unlimited data. Unlimited. I wish we could just print that out here because I can't even imagine. My brain doesn't go to unlimited. It stops off at 8 and then I see dollar signs. It's not cool. And so last year, there was a plan that several Canadian phone companies dropped out, right? They just pumped out, they're like, oh, hey, $60 10 gig plans. There you go. Enjoy that. Canadians, like great white sharks, got a taste for blood. Why? Because they finally got a good deal on a cell phone plan. It's never been done. And here we are. I missed it. I didn't do that. And that's just not cool. Now, while I have you here as well, so you don't miss out on what's good in the world of cell phones. And this is, so you see this chart here, PC Mag, which is a tech website, they did some investigative journalism of their own. And they did some digging and they compared some of the cell phone providers across Canada. Now, I'm not going to bore you with the details because it's boring as hell. TELUS came out on top for speed, and Rogers killed it with pricing. Now, I'm not telling you how to buy a phone. I'm not here to try to sell you a phone. But what I am saying is if you're going to get fucked, try to get fucked the softest way possible and the fastest way possible so that it's over quicker. All right, guys? I'm looking out for you. Moving on. Remember Michael Moore? Do you remember Michael Moore, the guy who made all those documentaries you had to watch in high school? Michael Moore, the guy who made those documentaries that one kid in your college class watched obsessively and then became convinced that everything was a conspiracy theory? He made another movie. He's back. He made another documentary. And this time, he's hitting a subject that no one has been brave enough to tackle before. He's talking about Donald Trump. No, wait. No, that's been done. Actually. Mike also says that he's ready to hop the border into Canada if his controversial new documentary gets him in trouble with the bigwigs in the government, which, again, I've never heard that before. But you know what, Mikey? Whatever you feel is going to drive controversy for your documentary, that's cool. Can we roll a clip? Let me show you what he's talking about.
How do you deal with this? You're never going to be able to unsee what you saw.
Try to impeach him. Just try it. You will have a
So, it's a spiritual sequel to his 2004 documentary, Fahrenheit 9/11. And he's basically saying that he has some new information about Donald Trump that got him elected and how he's a scummy guy. And this just feels like a rehash. Now, the name of this movie is Fahrenheit 11/9, which just feels like lazy writing. I don't know if he ran out of numbers to pair up together. I don't know what it is, but Mike, you could have gone for something good. And at the same time, I get he's mad. I get it, right? I think a lot of people are mad in the US and around the world about the situation, and that's fine. I think it's cool and healthy for him to channel that anger into creating a documentary. Now, maybe he has some amazing news that is going to change the world and is going to affect change in a positive way. Who knows? That's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is he let me fill 2 minutes of my show tonight with content, and you know what? Check out the documentary. It looks kind of cool. You can never learn enough. That's my take on life. That's my take on this documentary. Let's move on to the next subject at hand. Speaking of movies, that was supposed to be a super cool. I need to have somebody just yell things at me. Speaking of movies. In 1985. No, in 1895. 123 years ago. One of the very first movies in history was produced and released at a city in France. And this film, all right, 50 seconds long, no sound. It was literally just a train arriving at a station. And the way legend has it, everyone in attendance watched this train coming towards the screen, and they tripped out so hard, they freaked out, they ran out of the movie theater. And that's just one example of the way that cinema captures people's excitement and spirits and engagement, right? And that's always been a thing. I mean, you fast forward to 1977 when Star Wars first came out, and people just could not believe what the hell was going on. Darth Vader, ships coming out through space. Did that actually happen? No, it wasn't a documentary, contrary to many of your friends' beliefs. No, Star Wars is still a movie. I remember seeing Avatar in 2009 on IMAX 3D. It was like taking acid without actually taking acid. Things were coming out at you, and you thought that the world was going to change forever. Obviously it didn't. The movie wasn't that great, but it was a fun first experience. Now, people are not going to the movies as much as they used to. It could be the fact that ticket prices are pretty expensive. It could be the fact that you just wait until it's on a streaming service. You know, unless it's like Infinity War, you probably don't want to go spend $20 on an IMAX ticket to go see a movie. So Cineplex is dealing with this. They're like, okay, well, wait a second. No one's going to see movies. How do we fix this? Because they have balls, big, giant balls. So they team up with a Korean company and they bring in 4DX. What the fuck is 4DX and why should you care? Let's find out. Can we maximize this? Can we stretch this out? I need a full screen. There it is. So here we go. Let me explain to you what this is, right? 4DX uses special effects like lightning, smells, smoke, rain, snow, wind, and vibrations to mirror what's happening in the movie to make you feel like you're in the movie and also tripping balls, but in a good way. And so Cineplex is going to be putting these insane beast of a machine in Canadian cities all across the country. They're starting in Toronto, obviously. They're the favorite child. And then you have Montreal, Vancouver, and Calgary that are on the waiting list. And if they do well, they're just going to keep sprinkling me on. And you know what? I think that at a certain point, that's the only way that you're really going to get people to go watch a movie. Strap them in, blow them up a little bit, get them all wet. It's sounding really weird. But, you know, it's the only way you're going to mix things up. Now, if you're going to go see a movie in 4DX after October 17th, just take it slow a little bit. Chill out a little bit with the weed. Because you don't want to trip balls and make everyone else a little uncomfortable. So just measure it out. Measure it out. Let's move on to nurses. Have you guys heard of nurses? Do you guys know about nurses? Nurses are the backbone of the health industry. They do so much and get very little recognition. So before we get into it, I just want to say thank you to all the nurses who are probably working a double or a triple or a quadruple. They probably just live in the hospital. Nurses do a whole lot of things, right? They're the communication between the doctors and the patients. They take care of the situation, the medicinal situation while you're in the hospital. And they work stupid hours, ridiculous hours, ludicrous hours. And fun fact, it's actually also nursing that is the second most popular job for women in Canada. So thank you, ladies. That's awesome. Now, the reason I'm talking about this right now is that this is an article that's been trending all day on Narcity's website. And the article in question is basically saying how one thing that a lot of people don't know is that nursing is provincially regulated, right? So healthcare industry is a government thing. And so what that means is that you could be in Manitoba, you can be in Alberta, you can be in all over Canada. It's going to be a different setup for different nurses. Now, just to give you the two pieces of information from that article that I thought that were the most interesting. One, the highest hourly wage for nurses is in Manitoba, $63.17. And this is based on a million things, right? It depends on how much experience they have. It depends on the type of nurse they are. There's a bunch of factors that play into this. And then on the opposite spectrum, you have the lowest salary, hourly wage for a nurse is in Nova Scotia for $20.15. Now, all this to say, look, they all work very hard. And maybe don't shit on them if something's a little late or a little slow or whatever. You don't know how many shifts they've just worked back to back. Check out the full article on the website. It's very interesting, whether you're a nurse or not. Maybe that's why it's so popular. There's so many nurses in Canada. That's why I got so many clicks. But just get your mind in the zone for something like this. Just interesting, because education is power. And now we are going to talk about a really weird story. This is just super weird. In the town of Tsawasen. That's a small town in BC, and it's also super hard to pronounce. It's like 3 S's. I'm sorry, guys. It's me. I'm trying to. Birds have literally just started dying. Like they're falling from the sky. Like it's like their job to just die. Now, apparently they didn't get the memo that Halloween isn't for another month and a bit, and locals are just creeped out. But what's really weird about this whole thing is that this isn't the first time that it's happened. No, in March, the same thing happened in another area of BC, Okanagan, where 40 birds approximately had died as well. So this is a recurring thing. Now, a bird biologist confirmed to Global News that this is in fact weird as fuck. I don't know if that's the medical term or the biological term, but weird as fuck is what this is. And they said that they would be taking 40 approximately, again, birds that are dead back to the lab to test out, like, hey, what's going on? Which is doubly weird. Why are there 40 birds again that are dead? Is it like a thing that just 40 birds just fly in packs and they just die? Is it lightning? Is it something like crazy? Is this an alien thing is my question. Do we not have a paranormal bird department, an agency in Canada? Where is our tax dollar going is what I want to know. But yeah, no, this is just super weird story, and hopefully we're not gonna have too many of them, but also at the same time I hope we do, because there's nothing more fun than a little weird story. I'm gonna pull up the comments section right now, and let's see what we have going on here. Ooh, a lot of hellos. Here we go. It's from 98, 20 years old, standardized curriculum. Yep, I think it's from 98. So we're talking about the curriculum that we talked about at the beginning of the episode. Nikki says that this is from 98, but still that's 20 years old, right? And so when Doug Ford is doing something like this, not only is it's endangering the development educationally of kids of the future of Canada. He could be, man, it's just bad. He's holding us back with this stuff. Let's see. Ooh. Nope, that looks like about it. We're not getting too many comments tonight, but guys, look, this is what I want you to do, right? I presented you with a whole bunch of different topics tonight. Some weird birds dying, nurses. We talked about some crazy movie stuff going on. If you guys have comments about any of this, drop me a message, and we're gonna bring it up in the next episode. We're also gonna start doing Instagram comments where I'm gonna ask you guys we're gonna do polls. I'm going to ask you for one thing over another, and we're going to talk food. We're going to talk a whole bunch of stuff. I'm starting to sweat again. We need to get a fan in here, you guys. We need to get a fan. I need to invest in deodorant. That's it for tonight's episode of Anchorman Canada. I love you, Canada. If you love me, give us a like on Facebook. Subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Twitch. We're doing a whole bunch of stuff. And we're going to be back again tomorrow night at 7 o'clock Montreal time. Hopefully on time, and we're gonna knock it out of the park with another dope episode. Have yourselves a wonderful, wonderful evening.